Greetings, everyone. Greetings, and welcome to Progressive Discussions podcast. And I am here with my special guest, Mr. Robert Schoepke.
Yep.
And how you doing, sir?
Okay.
Welcome. And we are going to discuss something that Robert Schoepke knows quite a bit about, and also has enthusiasm for, and that is the music industry. Now, myself, Mr. Shippey, I like all different types of music, from Dixieland jazz, the stuff they played in the 1920s, to all types of jazz, actually, to 1960s classic rock from the 60s, and heavy metal, and I even like some classical music like Bach. I like some techno. I like the best of everything, even some country western. Um, what I don't I liked old house music. I like some hip hop, not that much, but I used to watch Soul Train and some disco, but of course the hits. Not everything, uh, gets me enthusiastic, but I tend to be very diverse in what I like. What I can't stand is people making money off the most stupidest, dumbass lyrics. I have no idea how the songs become a hit, but it's what is your views on the music industry, sir?
I would say that the music industry is catering to the lowest denominator just to make money, and the quality of their music in general is going down by the year.
Right.
And I've been noticing in recent years that all music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s is being recycled and returned rather than having new hits coming out like you had up until the 80s or so. So everything is either old music or new music that is of poor quality. And you don't have this new hit stuff anymore like you did back in those days. So it goes to tell me that something's amiss in the music industry.
Yeah, there's a lot of repetition in the lyrics and the sound. There's no real talent per se in songwriting. Uh, uh, um, it's it like Ken Create had told me over the phone. They tend to be blending things now, or there's not separate. You don't have the separate genres of music that find success in the classification that they're in. I mean, I can't stand this. I don't know what the hell you call it that the kids love now, but it sure is not. It's not heavy metal. It's not techno. Um, what the hell do you call it? I mean, I don't know. Like that. I'm trying to think of that guy.
It's a combination of rock and dance together.
Rock and dance. They combine. Okay, that was the Renaissance man can create in the studio. I'll be talking to him next. I mean, a little later. So, do you like? I mean, of course, many people are disappointed in Mr. Robert Shipke about today's music, and I know people criticize music in the past. The older generations criticized Frank Sinatra or Elvis. They thought Elvis. They made him look like he was obscene. But they all had their time, had their success, and then they faded out, and the music industry moved on. Now, what are some of your favorites? Do you like um, let's say I'm not a fan of doo-wop. I do like certain songs like Blue Moon. You know, the guys go ba 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 Blue Moon. I do like certain songs, but not that much. But I like '60s rock. Now, what are some of your preferences?
Let's see. You mean what kind of music do I like in general?
In general, or you know, just say what comes to mind about the music industry.
Right. Well, personally, the kind of music I like is what they call country folk. Country folk music is music that is intermediate between popular country music and the folk music of Pete Seeger, Joan Baez, because
Yeah,
I find out that the mixture of the two sounds better than either alone. Country without folk sounds too slick and commercial. Folk without country sounds too basic and repetitive.
yeah,
So I like the mixture of the two, which takes the good points of both.
yeah.
That would be like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, John Prine, John Denver, and Dick Feller. Now, Woody Guthrie's considered a folk singer, but when I listen to his music, he sounds more like a country folk singer, unlike Pete Seeger, who's just a folk singer. But the country aspect of Woody Guthrie's music is ignored or rejected for some reason that I don't know.
They even try to combine country with rock. I notice, but I like old country and bluegrass. I like that. Um, I mean, but I do notice the blend between country and rock nowadays. Um, um, but I think that one of the first people that started with that was what's his name again? Garth Brooks. You know, that different type of country music. You know, that sounded um, like a country pop
Yeah,
or country rock pop, whatever, a blend of the three. You know, I know with entertainment, in all aspects of the entertainment industry, there are people that use underhanded tactics to get ahead. You know, and they had talent. I mean, you can't be without talent, but it's a tough business for an honest person with talent to get ahead. It's very political. You know, when Diana Ross made her mark in Motown by dating the big man, um, and tried to phase out the other girls in the Supremes. You know, I mean, what was his name? Barry Gordy? Yeah,
Yeah.
what was his name? Is that his name? Barry Gordy?
Yep.
Oh, and with Soul Train, I was talking to Ken on the phone. Don Cornelius, when hip hop took over, he just decided to retire from Soul Train. He says, I just don't get this music. I'm sorry, I just don't get it. I can't, you know, and that was it. Um, but I wasn't crazy about hip hop, but I did like old house music, you know. What was that song? I Got the Power, that was Snap, I think. Then African Bombata, Planet Rock, and so on and so forth. And that group that sang "Play at Your Own Risk." Yeah, yeah. Kenny knows what I'm talking about. But I like that. I like that music, but not what they have today. But then again, even a great techno is mixed in with crap, where it's just the same damn beat over and over again. And there is techno music that can create, just refuses to perform to. It's the same beat over and over. You know.
the kind that sounds like a machine.
Yeah, exactly. So is there anything else you know about the industry that you would like to share?
Let's see. when it comes to classifying music genres, one thing I don't get is this. They classify the music, whether it's country, folk, rock, jazz, whatever. And the funny thing about classifications of music is first they classify the music, and then when you want to find out what the differences are between the classifications and how you could tell one apart from the other, when you try to find that out, people don't want to discuss it or they don't care. And I'm thinking to myself, if people don't like classifying music or don't want to discuss it, why do they classify it in the first place? I never got that. Some people even get angry at me for classifying music, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if they don't like it, number one, that's nothing to get angry about. And number two, I can still enjoy the music even if I like to classify it. So I just don't get this whole idea of why they classify it and then why you can't discuss the classifications.
Because there's an obsession. I think there's an obsession today with it's sort of like political correctness with ultra liberals. They're so thin-skinned. Everybody's walking on eggshells. They're so afraid of offending someone, of classifying someone in a group. Well, you know what? Classifications are not new. Classifying everything in life is not new. Open up an Encyclopedia Britannica and everything is in classifications. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. How do you identify things if you don't classify them? To be able to, for something to have an identity, it's not offensive to classify anything. You know, I mean, it's like a famous horror movie actor or actress being upset that all they get is horror movie parts. Hey, just be thankful you're rich and famous off of something in the entertainment business. You know, I mean, be grateful of that. I, and it's the same thing with what you're saying. You know, I mean, so what if it's classified? Who cares?
And then the other thing I noticed is that in the entertainment industry is sometimes actors reject parts because they don't like them, so they're picky about the parts they get. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if they don't like that, would they rather be one of these people who keep getting rejected and rejected all the time and never get anything?
Then they'll be bitching and moaning about that.
Which is worse?
Not to get work as an entertainer is worse than being typecast. To be a star, like let's say Karen Black, who's deceased, God rest her soul, she was typecast and known as a horror movie actress. Linda Blair, who's alive, thank God, and a very devoted animal rights activist, was typecast as a horror movie actress, and they couldn't get, it was very difficult for them to succeed in other roles. You know, it's just the way it is. But they're rich and famous. I don't know if they pissed their money away, but they reached fame and popularity on something. They could have been rejected by everyone in the business. But they got work, they got famous, they made good money, and I assume they get residuals off of their past accomplishments. Be thankful for that. You know, that's how I look at it. But you know, people are too thin-skinned, Robert. You know.
Yep. And it's getting worse by the decade.
You know, it is getting worse. People are they're childish. I have to say, to be offended over classifications is childish. It's insecure, like someone worried about other people that are booked on the same event as they are. You know, worried about somebody stealing their thunder, upstaging them. Just worry about your own performance. Do your job as to the best of your ability. Get paid and go home, or stay, watch the show, leave, do whatever you want. But don't be so fucking insecure about the other people. And you know, and a lot of performers are insecure
Yeah.
and flaky and eccentric. You know, they usually say rich people are eccentric, but poor people are crazy.
Yeah.
You know, they usually make that determination because you're rich. But what about old music? Do you like jazz? Like Dixieland
I
jazz?
like the older kind of jazz, like from the 20s and 30s, but not
Yeah.
so much the newer kind of jazz.
Like the ones they played during the Little Rascals when they used to be on the air.
Yeah, I guess that's okay.
Me too. I love that. I love the old jazz. And let's not forget blues. I love old time blues. I love blues, period.
Yeah.
You know, blues and jazz seem to go together.
Yeah.
You know, well, that's good. But you have similar interests. You're very well diverse, like I am. But your specialty would be country music. In your case, your favorite is country folk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you listen to a lot of music on satellite radio.
I usually listen to it on the internet.
Okay. And of course, the internet, you can find the original studio quality song of practically everything that was ever made. I mean, it's amazing how the Google company with YouTube handles the massive amount of videos and everything. You know, they must have humongous servers. But anyway, I think they're based in California. Um, but that's true. There's just so much available at our fingertips nowadays, you know, concerning music. I mean, with a real high quality tablet or smartphone, iPhone or whatever, I mean, you could download, you could listen to music with digital quality sound,
Yeah.
you know. So anyway, to wrap it up, would you like to say anything else about music?
Yeah. I would like to say that one form of music you don't hear much is what they call traditional urban folk music. That would be the folk songs from New York City and Boston from the 17 and 1800s.
Really, I'm learning something new here. I never heard this.
It sounds different than the country folk music because the country type of folk music has more of a rustic backwoodsy style and sound and lyrics. The urban folk music from New York City and Boston from the olden days has more like an intellectual lyrical sound. It's not backwoodsy or rustic, but it's folk. And that's the kind of music, that's the basis for the music of Peter, Paul and Mary, Joan Baez,
Right.
Pete Seeger, although those later folk people also did some country folk, but their main focus was on urban folk music.
Yeah.
And then you have what you also call urban country music. And urban country music's a mixture of popular country music and urban folk music. That would be like Jim Croce and Donna Fargo, Glenn Campbell, Kenny Rogers. So basically, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the music branched off into a lot of different classifications. And in the 70s on, all those different branches are being regrafted together into newer forms of music. And that's why there's so many classifications. It's a matter of branch and graft.
Huh, you're damn right. There are more and more classifications, and what I notice about country music and the blues is that the lyrics are based on people that are depressed, sad, upset about something. They're distraught. They're either crying over their past loves or something. But with old country and bluegrass, it sounds happy. It's a positive, happy music. The lyrics are positive.
Well, with country, bluegrass, and folk, with all three of them, both of them have positive, happy songs and sad, depressing or sad songs. They both have each. And the reason why I like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band is because they avoid the sad, depressing stuff and the mind-numbing, boring stuff. They stick to stuff that sounds good and isn't depressing.
Yeah, yeah. The Oak Ridge Boys had pretty positive lyrics.
Yeah.
But that's just an observation of mine. That old country and bluegrass has positive lyrics, and where the other ones are just crying the blues, pretty much, either as the blues or in country. I know Taylor Swift, they joke about it, but she has a tendency to write lyrics based on her being pissed at her old boyfriends.
Yeah.
Disappointed, yeah. But she's making money doing it. What the hell? But anyway, Robert Schoepke, it was a pleasure having you on the show.
Yep.
All right.
And I hope my face didn't break the camera.
No, I'm sure it did not. We'll see you. Welcome, everyone. Greetings. We are back again. And this is Progressive Discussions podcast. And for the second segment of our show, I am here with the one and only, the Renaissance man, Can Create. Welcome back.
How you doing, James?
Great.
Hey, I'd like to just say something
Sure.
to the audience. Now, you call me Renaissance man. Now, when I did the video for VH1, somebody got the video to them. I don't know if they're in the entertainment world, the business world, the corporate world, but I want to thank them for putting me on VH1. But I got to get one thing straight from you.
Yeah.
He's the one who gave me that name, Renaissance man.
I know. I saw it on the internet.
I have nothing to do with that name.
You're not a self-proclaimed Renaissance man. It was a professional man in the industry that gave you that name.
Exactly. So I just wanted to get that straight.
Well, that's the best way to get a title is when other people of expertise give it to you. Like Bruno Sammartino did not name himself the living legend. Others called him the living legend of professional wrestling.
Right.
And but we're going to discuss the entertainment industry. Now, I want to dedicate this segment with Can Create to the absolute legend, no doubt about it, the late great Charlie Chaplin. And I want to start by playing the famous speech of Charlie Chaplin. Here we go.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone. The good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much, feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness of men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of the system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. For those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you and slay you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power. The power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give you the future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill their promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Wow. Okay.
I really like that music. That music was really good.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that the volume of the music should have been a little bit lower to emphasize Charlie Chaplin's voice, but it was the only time I've ever heard Charlie Chaplin speak, and I am speechless. I mean, it was quite powerful what he said.
Yeah, it was a powerful message, but like I said, I seen all his movies, and I seen his movies that were silent, and then I seen a couple talkies he did.
Oh.
But it's like, if you take him, there was like a pattern that was followed. I mean, you had him, you had Buster Keaton, you had the heavyset guy,
Fatty Arbuckle.
Fatty Arbuckle. But then you had people who followed. You had Lauren Hardy.
Well, Oliver Hardy had a bit of a Charlie Chaplin look to him.
Well, but they all did, okay? And then from there, you had Abbott Costello. And then from there, you had the team of Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. So you had teams that followed. But it was a cycle that followed. But if you look at Charlie Chaplin, I would consider him like a genius, because when I got into the entertainment world, but before that, when I was growing up, I would watch my TV shows, the cartoons, just like you.
Yeah.
All right. And
in 70s.
And watch the movies. All right. And even watch his movies. And he made you laugh, the Marx Brothers, and all them kind of people.
Yeah. Well, Costello used to flip the derby
Right,
hat, kind of
right.
like Chaplin. There was all certain similarities with all of them.
Well, yeah, because they all took from, people from the past. Like they took from Chaplin. This one
Right.
took from somebody else. All right. But what I'm saying is, once I got into the entertainment, all right, and I would go back and watch this stuff, like Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, and individuals like that. I would watch their movies, but I would watch their dance moves and stuff. and I would take it from what I watched and just practice on my own.
Right. Now, the Nicholas brothers,
Right.
I'm sure, had a tremendous influence on Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, uh, um, uh, going all the way up in the future to Michael Jackson, the late Michael Jackson. But the Nicholas brothers, I didn't even know they existed
Right.
until you told me about them. And then I looked them up on YouTube, and I was like totally impressed. And I saw how they were mentors for these other dancing legends, and
They were self-taught because I watched their biography.
amazing, incredible. Now the whole concept of the straight man and the dope
Right.
comedy, many feel it was Laurel and Hardy, but I'm sure Laurel and Hardy got the idea probably from people in vaudeville, maybe.
Well, like I said, you can go back to Buster Keaton and you can go back to Chaplin.
I mean, the idea of having a straight man
All right.
and a funny dope.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin, you said Abbott and Costello.
Right.
I mean,
They robbed. They all robbed. They studied. Okay.
Yeah.
They studied these individuals because, like I said before, when I got in the entertainment world and I would watch them, all right. But then I got to the point I started to study them. That's totally different than watching.
oh yeah, without a doubt.
Because I watched the one Chaplin movie, what you seen in that clip, where he was the dictator. He's supposed to play Hitler. He plays two parts.
Yeah.
Now, when I watched the movie, all right, he made me laugh. But the next time it came on and he got to a certain skit, I studied that skit. Now, the skit was about 10 minutes long. He's going to put the guy in a chair and he's going to give him a shave because he's playing a barbershop guy. He
Mhm.
plays two parts.
Mhm.
Now, when he put him in the chair, all right, he had music running. That was like 8, 10 minutes. And he went right to the music. So if he got the shaving cream, which used to come in the glass,
Oh yeah,
With
actually I use it myself.
Right.
The mug with the
with
brush.
the mug,
yeah,
with the
yeah.
brush, and he went by the sink, and he turned down the sink, and the music was playing. He went to the music. So if it was 4 beats, he did 4 beats with the
Ah, you're
with
right.
the brush.
He's right on the money with
ears, and if it stopped, he stopped.
Ah.
And then when he went to the guy and he put the thing around him, all right, he went right to the music. It stopped. He went in here, he took it, he put it on his face. When the music stopped, he'd stop. And then he stopped. And then he moved, and then he'd go get the shaver and he'd go like this.
Yes, with that the strap,
Right. He'd have the strap
the straight razor.
and he went right to the music. And then when he started shaving him, he was shaving him, but he was choreographed to the music. So if it was 4 quick moves, he did 4 quick moves on his face. And then if it was 2, he'd do 2. And then stop, he'd stop.
Now, most people would never notice this.
No, because what you're doing is you're just watching him and you're seeing the comedy part, so you're laughing. You're not studying him. But when you study him and see that skit he did, and even at the end, the way he took him out of the chair, and he ended right on the beat of the music, I watched that. I studied that, and I said, this guy's a genius. All right? Do you know how hard it is to put that 10 minutes together? Now, in the movie, he does another skit where he's outside and the Nazi guys come along. And the lady's upstairs and he gets in a fight with him. So she opens the window and she has like a big pan and she's trying to hit them over the head.
Yeah.
So she hits them over the head, but he comes by and she hits him over the head. Now he's like dazed and he starts walking around. Now he does this ballerina dance moves on the sidewalk, which goes to the curb. And his balance was right, incredible. And again, choreographed right to his music. Now, when you see his old movies, his silence,
Right.
choreographed. His move he did where he walked, but then he did the thing where he would stop and then his body would like branch around, almost like a pirouette, and he'd come
Yeah.
around. All right, that was all Chaplin. He was like very graceful. All right, and everything I studied on the man, I was like, this guy is a genius. So people who studied him, even like a Michael Jackson, that was like Michael Jackson's idol.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren Hardy, you can go Abbott Costello. All right, even Jackie Gleason. They had to study this guy. So to me, he was the genius, and everybody followed him, and in a way, took little information from him.
I think a great part of Chaplin's genius was the fact that he had his comedy and his entertainment ability had to be physical because there were silent movies.
There were silent
So
movies.
he had to compensate for the lack of sound.
Yes.
I mean, not lack of sound, sorry. They had music. Lack of speaking.
And that's where all his acting came in. That's the expressions on his face. So if he had to play a sad man at that moment, he put you right there where he was a sad man. That's all acting. That's not, that's acting. That's ad libbing. And he had it all. I mean, and then he was also a sculptor. He was a painter. He was a writer. So he was multi-talented. So in my personal opinion, I'd say he was the cream of the crop and he was a genius when it came to entertainment.
Right, and he paved the way for everyone.
He paved
after
the way
him.
for a lot of people after that.
Now, aside from having the ability to study performers of different kinds, actors, dancers, singers, whatever, you also have an appreciation for performers that have great versatility.
Right.
Because if you are a very versatile, diverse performer with many talents, you get more work. Like you were telling me about Debbie Reynolds and Mickey Rooney. They were versatile people, and there's not too many that have that ability.
Well, back then it was like you had to have a lot of coverage. It was like, hey, can you dance? Can you sing? Can you act? Can you do comedy? So the more that you can do, the more roles basically you would get. But now you also had your serious actors.
Right.
All right. And then you had your dramatic actors, mysterious actors. Okay. Now they all came in a situation where it was like, okay, you're good with this role, we'll stick with you here. But now there was other people that are versatile. I mean, James Cagney was versatile. Okay. He can dance. The singing wasn't bad. All right. But he can do comedy. He can do the gangster roles.
Yeah.
He can do the mysteries.
What did he sound like,
Right.
Al Jolson when he sang?
Yeah,
Was it his voice?
but he was versatile.
Right.
Now, when you look at Humphrey Bogart, Bogart was more of that character because of his voice and
His face.
his
too.
face and his lip, the
Yeah.
way he talked. He was more like that gangster type guy, detective type mystery,
Yeah.
crime drama.
I know there was a gangster actor, John Garfield.
Right.
Right, and then my grandfather used to talk about one of the first cowboy stars, Tom Mix.
Right, Tom Mix.
You know, and then the list goes on and
But
on.
they basically stayed there.
Typecasting.
Right. Okay. Where Cagney, he could play a lot of different roles.
Yeah. Well, like I was talking to Robert Schoepke about the typecasting. Hey, man, Peter Lorre, Bela Lugosi, John Carradine, Boris Karloff, and the other one, Lon Chaney Jr. They were
Right.
typecast, and they could be pissed about it. They could be unhappy about it, but hey, they were on the map.
Yeah, but see, if you watch A Man of a Thousand Faces, which Cagney played Lon Chaney, all right, when he went for certain roles, and he went for that role, say it was a role of an Indian, and it was 15 people on the set going for that part. He had his own makeup kit, and he dressed like an Indian.
Wow.
So when they said, okay, look, how many people we got to play the role of the Indian? And they looked at him, they were like, wow, this guy's in character already. He's interesting.
So this man was like a chameleon.
Yeah.
He was able to change and play so many different roles.
And it was all him doing all the makeup and everything. So they looked at him and say, wow, this guy has the ability to do his own makeup and get in these outfits. If his acting is as good as his character that he's dressed up to be,
Yeah.
wow, this guy's going to be great.
Yeah, you see, there was discrimination was worse in the past. I mean, Charlie Chan was actually a Caucasian Jewish actor,
Right,
but I think number one son was actually Asian, I think.
right,
But Charlie Chan was a Caucasian person.
right.
That's just how it was. Native American actors did not play Native Americans
Right.
back then.
No, which I agree with you.
You know.
So, like I said, there are certain people that do come along that stand out, but it's also what they put into their craft.
Right. Amos and Andy on the radio, I heard, were white guys.
Right.
2 white guys.
But they would, like, you take Al Jolson. He was a Jewish man who went in a blackface.
But back then they were
All right.
able to get away with that.
They were able to get away with it, but he was so good singing, all right, that when he came out without the blackface, he was accepted because he had a great voice
Yeah.
and he was a showman.
Yeah.
So it has a lot to do with it. So I think the more you're versatile, God willing, some doors will open up for you that could lead to bigger things. But in the past, it was more like, all right, how versatile are you? Because Mickey Rooney type,
Yeah.
he did comedy, all right? And he did the movies with Judy Garland. But from there, he did the Hardy movies,
Yeah.
which were comedy. And then he branched out in other directions. So when he went for the role to play a famous drummer, he learned the drums on his own.
Right.
And in the movie, he plays the drums, and you think this guy's a professional drummer.
Wow.
All right. So he was very versatile. He can dance. He can do comedy. He did drama. You know, he covered a lot of different territories of entertainment. So now when you look at it, an individual like that, you're like, wow, you know what? This guy's a great entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
He's a star.
Yeah.
Other people would come along and like, you know, be in one category, stay there. Yeah, they were pretty good, whatever. They would make their living and they would stick there. But today's entertainment, to me, a lot of these people just go through the motion, get paid, sit in mansions and, you know, take things for granted and they don't care. And I think that's what you have
Yeah, the
a lot
talent
today in entertainment.
The talent is really watered down today. Well, aside from Charlie Chaplin paving the way, vaudeville also paved the way for many.
Oh, sure. Well, you had George Burns and Jack Benny came along,
Even the Three Stooges
Yeah, the
originally
Three
did
Stooges.
vaudeville, you know.
you know, and then you also had individuals who were black that covered vaudeville. All right, on the dance thing, you had Bojangles, where the Nicholas brothers would watch
Right.
Bojangles and other entertainers at the Apollo because their parents were in the entertainment
Right.
world. So they would watch them. And then in the daytime, they would go in their backyard and practice their dance moves.
Yeah, at that time, Harlem and the Apollo
Right.
was really a cool
Right.
hopping place.
Right.
You know, it was very different. You know, and of course,
So like I said, in the past, you had different people that covered a lot of different territory. Today, even in the music, you take the music. Now we grew up like I was born in '57. Where were you born?
58.
All right, '58. So we really got to the music, say we're 8, 10 years old.
Yeah.
All right, so that would put us like 1968, 1967.
Yeah.
All right. So it was more like ABC top 40 type music.
Well, I when I started watching television as a kid, we had '60s rock. I was watching shows that were um, brand new episodes every week. The Partridge Family, the Monkees. You know what I mean? These are the things I watched as a kid.
Well,
Dark Shadows.
Yeah, but see, this stuff was like in your face.
Yeah.
All right. So it's like when we start listening to music and you're listening to ABC, all right, you would listen to like you had like Bread, okay, you had Moody Blues, you know, and you had the whole revelation of all the British bands.
The British Revolution,
Right.
British invasion.
Right.
Then you
Okay.
had the Woodstock event. What was
Yeah,
that?
well, that was '69 because
69.
that's when a lot of things were changing. All right, but you had in the '50s, you had Elvis.
Yeah.
All right, you had Little Richard.
And when you think about it, Elvis, Little Richard, a lot of those performers, they were in a musical way, they were typecast too because they had their unique style, and they only went so far over the course of years
Right.
in their career,
Right.
and eventually they faded out.
Well, yeah, but you have legends like Elvis. He never
Yeah.
fizzled
Well, he
out.
played Vegas.
All right, but he never fizzled out. Okay, because he was a show person.
Yeah.
He had personality.
Yeah.
He had pizzazz. It was all written over him.
I mean, his songs, his hits. There was a time where he just went on tour and did his
well, yeah,
music. He was famous for it.
yeah.
I mean, opposed to the Rolling Stones, who are like 100 years old,
They're just repeating themselves.
and they're still writing. Yeah, but they're still writing music.
But they're just basically repeating themselves. They did everything they possibly could.
In other words,
On the
they sound the
instrument.
same.
Yeah, I mean, when they come on the radio, you know it's the Stones.
Even their new songs sound.
Don't
Sound
get
the same.
into it. Don't get into it because I feel them guys should retire. All right, they're too old. All right, but anyway, that's another story.
That's another story.
But when I got into the music, I got into the rock. All right, but when progressive rock came in, that's what I started to like, and progressive jazz. Because these individuals, like if you take Genesis, Pink Floyd, all right, Moody Blues, Jethro Tull, if you take John LaPonte, Al Di Meola, all right, they were more versatile because they grew up with the 50s music, loved all that type of music, all right, but when they went to school, they went to like the classical schools. So everything that they studied, like a Rick Wakeman, studied classical music. All right. So when he formed his own band, like when he was 12 years old, it's what he knew, what he played, but all the styles of music that he liked, he put together. All right. So even when like a Yes formed and a Genesis formed and a Pink Floyd formed, they would put music that they liked growing up, all right, and also give it a twist of rock in there. But a lot of things I liked about their music of them bands was they can have 10.
Yeah. Now I just want to drop a name real quick about people that put jazz on the map, like Cab Calloway.
Right.
People like him during that. He was big during the big.
Right.
He was popular during the big band era, right?
Right.
And I'm sure like people like Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett
Right.
contributed to jazz also.
Right.
But jazz and blues were put into mainstream by
Right.
certain individuals that were considered legends, and
Right.
I enjoy it all. But you were talking about progressive rock
Right.
and the band Yes. So
Well, like when I got into the bands, like I said, yes, Genesis, Pink Floyd, these guys would combine 10 different styles into one song and change their music constantly. that takes time. That takes
Right.
time in the studio. It's not like, okay, you got a guitar player, a drummer, a singer, and a bass player, and you're playing simple stuff and you put lyrics together and we have a song. No, these guys were complicated. It's because what they studied and what they liked, and they would put material together in one song with five different styles of music. And then they would branch out with the words where the words would kind of stop and you have 4 or 5 minutes of just music that was like phenomenal music. So when you take bands like a Yes, a Kansas, a Jethro Tull, and they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there's something wrong with that picture. Now you're putting bands in like Cheap Trick and people in that kind of style, whatever, and to me it's like they're no Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's just simple music.
Well,
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to me is like it's the elite. It's ones that made changes that brought different music in that other people followed. Like if you take Yes, for example, and they came out in 1968. All right. The people who followed them was like Kansas, Rush, UK, all right? And it was like these bands, their favorite bands growing up was like a Yes, all right? So it's like they passed the baton to these other people who became these other bands, and progressive rock carried on. But they were influenced from a band like Yes, from a band like Genesis, all right? So to me, they're the people that belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
well, I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law, and he told me, he says, to be honest with you, people that are big fans of heavy metal generally hate progressive rock.
Right.
They you know, they just don't like it. They one guy says it was like you know, um, I don't know. He was saying
It's too complicated.
I guess you know because you know rock is usually about
Driving.
you're
It's
angry.
driving.
You're
Yeah.
angry at
Yeah.
something. You're rebelling
Yeah.
against something,
It's driving music.
and it's about sex.
Yeah, and it's also driving music.
In other words, it makes you cool when you're driving your Plymouth Barracuda,
Well, yeah, but when I'm
Dodge
saying
Charger, or whatever.
right, but when I'm saying driving music, I'm not talking about driving your car. It's driving
Getting the blood
music
enthusiasm. Yeah.
that it's just pumping. You know what I mean?
You know, like you're not gonna be doing this.
No, well, you are doing that.
You'll be mellow at a progressive rock
Yes,
concert.
absolutely.
You'll be mellow.
Because they're putting you there, and number two, you're looking how great they are as musicians. So when I went to a Yes concert, and we were all sitting there, nobody stood up. All right, everybody, smoked their weed and people party, but it was more of a peaceful crowd because everybody who was there was watching these guys,
Appreciating
Appreciating-
their individual.
right, their talent, but also seeing how great these guys are as musicians. Because if you take a band like that, or Genesis or Pink Floyd, they can go out on their own and do their own stuff, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
So individual wise, they're musicians, all right? And then they form a group.
Right.
See, to me, a band is different than a group. A band is you, three of your friends, and making music in your garage, and it can sound pretty good, and you doing an album. That's a band.
Yeah.
But let's take you out of that and put you solo. What can you do?
Ah.
So now if you can do simple stuff and you cover simple stuff, then you know what? You belong in a band with other simple people. But if you're a musician and you can covering, say, your keyboards, and you can play all different music, that's a musician. All right? This other stuff, simple notes, putting things together, grabbing three guys and making a band, well,
See,
that doesn't do nothing.
yeah.
for
Well,
me.
you hit the nail on the head when you said that the difference between a metal concert and a progressive rock concert, the behavior in the fans
Right.
says it right there.
Right.
You know, it's the rock, the metal. I mean the metal rock
Right.
is about emotion,
Right.
driving people's emotions,
Well, that's what it is.
revving them up
Right.
with emotion. Whereas progressive rock is just more, you're just really relaxing and really listening and appreciating the super talent of the band together and the
Well,
individuals.
because
individual
also
talent.
you're combining sounds
Right.
into one. So you got to use your brain. All right. That's not easy to do because I have friends who were in bands. I have friends who studied yes music, and they said it was the most complicated music you ever wanted to play. Now they could turn and play the Rolling Stones in their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, do I look at the Rolling Stones and say, well, they didn't have that ability? Maybe they did, but they never went down that road. They made it simple, and that's the type of living and the type of music that they make, and that's why they're famous. The Beatles were versatile. They could play different stuff.
They had
that came along.
and they had great longevity as a
All
group.
right. So they were very creative, and they could do other things, which was great.
Yeah. The only thing that was funny to me was the song that became a hit that they wrote. That the lyrics were just a repeat of the same words. You say yes and I say
Right.
no, and you know you say goodbye and I say hello. Something as simple
Right.
as that
Right.
turned into a song and became a hit.
It's what they did with it. I mean, look at Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash, his music was simple, but listen to his lyrics and how he put it together. He was a genius.
Yeah,
at what he did.
I love that song, The Ring of Fire. Yeah,
He was a genius at what he did.
yeah.
Is there are not too many of them guys that come along. If you take like a Ray Orbison,
Roy Orbison.
Roy Orbison, all right, he didn't even jump around. He just opened his mouth,
He sounded
and
fantastic.
that was his show.
He didn't have to swivel his hip,
No, he
shake
didn't have
his
to do nothing.
shake his ass, nothing.
All right, and you were mesmerized by what came out of his mouth.
I mean, he could be like a statue with a
Right.
guitar,
Right,
and his glasses are on, and he sunglasses,
just
and he
from
only the lonely.
that was his voice.
It was all his voice,
That was his showman.
but that's all he needed.
Well, yes, okay,
Johnny Cash had that unique voice
yes,
that no one
right,
has yet.
right.
I'm not talking about impersonators. I mean people that are serious. He's unique. He's one of a kind.
He just played certain notes on his guitar. It was simple, all right, but the way he did it was like unbelievable.
Even Jackie Wilson had a uniqueness about his voice.
Right. So there was a lot of people that came around, like I said, that were great at what they did. I mean, I'll give you one quick example. I was by my brother's house. He watched the special. He taped it. And when I was by his house, we watched it on the Carpenters. All
Right.
Now, they started out as jazz musicians, and she was a drummer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they were good.
Karen and her brother.
Yeah, they were good. I mean, you heard them, the tapes. And she was a very, very good, accomplished drummer.
This is before
was-
she.
He was a classical jazz, keyboardist.
Wow.
All right. But when he heard her sing, he looked and he said, we got something different here. All right. So they went to A&M Records. And Herb Alpert said to her, I can make you famous, and the Carpenters can be famous, but your calling is for ballads. So that's why they went the route of ballads, because of her
Oh.
voice.
So Herb Alpert was the inspiration.
Well, told her, all right, you're great doing jazz, all right, and you guys are good doing the jazz, but it's not your calling. If you want to make it in this industry, her voice is ballads.
To go to pop ballads.
To go to the top. So they listened. He played the classical music, and she sang the ballads to the music. And that's why they were huge. Now, you might like them, you might not. But you got to look at them for the category that they were in and what they did. That's rock and roll Hall of Fame material.
Well, my admiration was for Karen Carpenter's voice.
Yeah.
Just like with um, like Carole King was another
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
performer. But I'm just saying, and Carly Simon was very unique
Yeah.
too. But Karen Carpenter was also very unique. But also she had a fantastic voice. And
Yeah.
I'm not into sad songs. I'm not into ballads. But
You got to give them.
I got to give her the credit for having such a beautiful voice. And I'm sure the very first hit sent them to the top.
Well, they had what's his name who did lyrics for him, for the Carpenters. All right, Paul Williams, who was with.
Paul Williams, really?
Yeah, he did.
Not Burt Bacharach.
Well, he did too. Okay, but Paul Williams wrote for a lot of people. Now he was with the first edition with Kenny Rogers. He was the keyboard player. Yeah. All right. So anyway, when he was doing a couple songs for them, his friend said to him, "Why do you want to work with the Carpenters when they're like very square and very vanilla?" You know what he said to his friends?
Like the Osmonds.
No, you know what he said to his friends?
What?
He says, "Vanilla's a good ice cream, and I like that."
That's because he looked like he had blonde
No,
hair.
it had nothing to do with it.
In other
What
words,
he was trying to say was,
he was saying, well, vanilla's a good popular flavor.
yeah, but what he was trying to say was, they're great at what they do. All right?
Yeah.
So don't knock them in their category.
Because they weren't
rock, they weren't
rock,
heavy metal,
they weren't hipsters.
All right? They were considered square.
Conservative.
All
yeah.
right? But he says to his friends, but they're great at what they do.
Yeah, she was no Grace Slick.
All right?
Grace Slick.
So I'm going to write for them.
Right.
And the rest is history. But like I said, if you put them in the category of like ballad, all right, and soft music, they're in the top 5 for the category. That's what I look at.
So that's what I kind of meant before about musical typecasting.
Right.
It's not, the word typecasting does not have to be negative. It can be very positive, and you just have to be secure and happy that you've made it big, and not be upset that you can't, do. It wasn't meant to be that you do other things like Grace Slick. Besides being a very attractive woman, she was, fantastic at what she did with the Jefferson Starship.
Well, yeah, because like I said, they all follow patterns. So if you take like individuals had bands and say you had 20 people, 20 different groups that did ballads, all right, you would have to look at the Carpenters and say they're in the top 5 of that category.
Yes.
So to me, that's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you take progressive rock and you got 20 top bands and Yes is in the top 3, that's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All right?
Yeah.
But what they do is they take these in general. All right? So if you take a Cheap Trick and they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, how can you compare them to a Yes? You can't. It's impossible. Because when I watched a show by my brothers,
right,
the heavy metal channel, they had the guy on from Cheap Trick, the guitar player.
Right.
And his buddy was, who the heck was it? I'm trying to think. He had a big hit, and he was a guitar player. But anyway, they were buddies. And they had tickets to go see Yes. And they were in the 5th row. All right. And they're watching Yes. And the guy from Cheap Trick looked at his buddy, who became a big rock star. All right. And he says, these guys are blowing us away. So he looked at his buddy and he says, I'm going to be a rock star because of these guys.
Wow.
So they totally blew them away. Now you take a Cheap Trick, who loved Yes. All right, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and this is their idols, and they ain't even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And Yes is not even in it.
Okay, you take Rush, you take Kansas, and you take bands like that, and they say our influence came from Yes, okay, and they're not even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Maybe Rush is getting in, or they could be in. All right, but when you look at their influence, they're all like Yes, Genesis, Pink Floyd, and it's like you got to be kidding me. These bands, these individuals should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you get a Joan Jett that gets in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's like, come on, there's something wrong.
Let me
with
guess,
this
Pat
picture.
Benatar is probably the
Well, she could be, all right, but when you look at them, it's like you got to be kidding me,
Joan Jett.
all right. But if you look at say Christine Hines, the Pretenders, all right, she was great at what she did. Now, to me, if a woman's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, maybe she's there. I don't know, but if she's not, she deserves to be in there. All right, because she can play, and she can sing, and she was the writer. All right, and she covered a lot. So for what she did, for the women wise, rock wise, she should be there. Now, if she's there, she deserves it. If she's not, she deserves to be in there because she, I would say, was one of the first when it came to female playing instruments, lyrics, singing, writing, and she ran the deal of the band. She's a big influence for women that followed in the rock world. If she's there, great. If she's not, she deserves to be there. Just like Blondie.
Yeah, Deborah Harry.
All right. Now, she came and she gone. All right. So my personal opinion, yeah, she was good for what she did, but
She
is
had a
she
few
rock
hits.
and roll? But is she rock and roll Hall of Fame material?
She was between I wouldn't no, she's not. She was a little beyond a one-hit wonder status.
She had
some hits.
She had some hits.
She had
all right?
some hits.
But she wasn't around a long time.
No.
All right.
She didn't have that
All
longevity.
right. But to me, is she rock and roll material? I don't think so. A Christy Hines, I'd say, yeah, because she had a rocking band and she was good. All right. She was married to the guy from the Kinks.
Oh.
All right. And the guy from the Kinks, the band the Kinks, they were great for what they did. So when she came along and they dated and he liked her, but he liked what she was doing music wise, if he thinks she's good and they got married, then you know what? She's good.
Yeah.
Bottom line. You know? And it's a shame. There's people that should be in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame who are not.
Well, a singer, to me, a real singer is a person who can hold a note. You know, you're talking about these other people like Deborah Harry and and Joan Jett. I mean,
And
who's got a screechy voice?
Yeah,
Who has a
they come
nasal?
and go.
Yeah, they come and go.
they come and go.
And then you got to look at as a criteria how many hits did they have? What kind of successful longevity did they have? Which should be very important for determining who should be inducted.
I look at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. To me, it's like, okay, how long were you in the industry? Who did you influence? Did you change things in music? Were you creative? Now, if you have that all as your resume and it's solid, then to me, you're a rock and roll.
Yeah, but the amount of hits is also very important.
No, it is. But if you influence a lot of people that followed in your footsteps, all right?
Well, the influencing, in order to be on the map, you have to have hits. Recognition.
Well, yeah. But if you influence, say a band comes along, all right, and from what they did, 10 other bands come along, and that was like their idol band, and that category just goes on. You got to look at that band and say, whoa, look at all the bands that, like their band.
Because you have to look at the words the Rock and Roll Hall of
That's the
Fame.
elite.
Fame.
It's the elite.
Fame comes from hits.
Eh.
If Joe Blow from Idaho had a band that kicked ass, but they never made it big with hits, but they inspired a lot of people, well, that's wonderful. But Hall of Fame, when you have fame, you got to be on the map. You have to have hits. Hits.
Well, you have to have hits, but if you take somebody, maybe didn't have a lot of hits, but they influenced, like I said, to the other bands that came along, and they kind of imitated their style,
Okay.
and they had hits. That all came from that band.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it should be. There should be many diverse assets that should put somebody in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's
I
all.
told you, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to me, just like sports Hall of Fames, should be just for the elite. That's it.
Yeah. Well,
That's
as
it.
far as sports Hall of Fames goes,
There's a lot of garbage.
there's
there.
a lot of people.
Politics.
It's politics, yes, but there's a lot of people who don't belong in it because of steroid use.
Right,
Because of steroid use.
right, but also politics. All right. If you take somebody in football that had some big numbers, good. Maybe he was a bubble, Hall of Fame, or I don't think so. But he gets into the broadcasting, gets to know people, and the sports writers like it. Him down the road, he can get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
All right, but was he Pro Football
Right.
Material Hall of Fame?
Well, you know a voiceover artist, William H. Morrow. You met Billy Morrow.
Yeah.
Now, Billy Morrow, when he was young, he had to change colleges
Right.
because he moved. And he had a rocket for an arm as a quarterback.
Right.
Okay. He tried out for the college team, and the coach said, Billy, you got to prove yourself. All right, I'm willing to prove myself. Man, he was hurting a lot of sternums. That's how hard and how accurate he threw. But guess what? The coach says I got to go with my brother-in-law. I'm sorry, I got to go with my son-in-law. My son-in-law is the quarterback. Now it's politics.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing in entertainment. It's all politics. But like I said, the more versatile you are and you're not, stereotyped in one category, the more categories you can cover,
Yeah.
the better shot you got in the entertainment world of working. And for me, I look at the elite, that's who I studied. So even when it came to music, all right, to be where I want to be, to go to where I want to go, I listen to the best.
Right.
Okay, because that influences
Right.
you
Right.
to keep you on the right track
Right.
to where you want to go.
Well, like Robin Williams was inspired by Jonathan Winters.
Exactly.
And I'm sure Red Skelton inspired.
There you go.
Carol Burnett. Carol
Lucille
Burnett. Lucille Ball was
Sure.
like a mentor to her.
Sure. But they were geniuses at
Right.
what they did. All right. Now, as far as we were talking about the creating wise, to me, it's like if I find a song I like and I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
All right. It's like I might look and say, okay, there's something there, but I don't know yet. All right. Now, if I listen to it a week later and say, okay, that song's interesting. Now, if I put it aside and 2 weeks later, I'll be like, well, let me go back to that song. Now, if I listen to it again the third time and I feel, whoa, there's something here. Now, I'll listen to that song and say, you know what? I'm thinking maybe using this song. But now what they do is, which you know, and Brother Bob knows, I go out to the Dollar Tree or different places, and if I find any type of prop that I like, I'll buy it, and I put it in my drawers. So I have all my material.
You
there.
have a prop drawer.
I have a prop drawer with all my material there. So if I like a certain song and I think I can work to it, then I'll look through my props and say, whoa, that prop right there, that'll go good with that song. Now, if I like the song, what I'll do is put my headphones on and I'll listen to the song constantly. where I know the song inside and out. I know every beat, I know every change, violins come in, what to do. And once I know that inside and out, then I start picking it apart, and now I start practicing that song with the prop I'm going to use. So if I had to have, say, 10 songs, and I'm going to do 10 songs for
Yeah.
a show,
Right.
I got to do it where I want it to be. Every song's different. Every style is going to be different. And every song I'm going to use, it's going to be different. Every style is going to be different. And I'm going to be using a different prop for every song. So that's where all the creating comes in.
Yeah. And then, of course, with your ability, you could find something practically in the garbage. You can find a styrofoam
Well,
cup.
that's a great thing. But the best thing is when you got peace with God, covered by the blood of Christ, and your Creator is living in you. There's no wall. You
Yeah.
just go on, and you just let the Holy Spirit control
Well,
you.
that's the source
And He
of your,
controls the creating.
yeah. That's the source of your power.
Well, that's it. Without the power of the Holy Spirit, I
Yeah.
couldn't be thinking like
Yeah.
this. I couldn't. None of this writing would be
Yeah.
going on.
Well, that's another talk show.
Yeah.
Right? You know, he also is an outstanding evangelist, also, which is part of the many hats of Can Create. Okay.
I think we covered a lot here, James.
Yeah. We covered a lot,
Right.
and we will be back. We have a special treat for the end of this show. You know, if you thought that you've seen it all and you're entertained enough, but there's one more thing. Myself, James P. Madonna, and Ken Create will perform a little bit for you. Ken's going to read a story, or
We'll
two.
do two stories.
2 stories, and I'm going to play my African drum.
Right.
All right. But as far as the entertainment industry
Right.
goes, it went exceptionally
Yeah,
well.
it was good. It was good.
As a tribute to Charlie
Right.
Chaplin, and honoring progressive rock,
Right.
and getting into the detail of acting,
Right.
dance,
Right.
singing, the whole 9 yards, and bands. Was great. Both with Robert Schoepke,
Right.
Schoepke, Robert Schoepke, and Ken Create. We'll see you in the next segment. Greetings, everyone. We are back. I am James P. Madonna with Progressive Discussions podcast, and we will now do some storytelling. Can Create will do some storytelling, and I will play my African drum at the same time, sort of like reminiscent of the hippies when they used to do the bongo. All right.
Ready to roll?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. This is called Long and Lonely Road. Long and lonely road. Carrying a load. Long and lonely road. Carrying a load. There are no lights on this road. A mist up above. People in the way. Like a child without a home. Like a plan within a game. Tell me, who's to blame on this long and lonely road? Long and lonely road. Killers are in the way. A streetwalker gone astray. A drug addict on his way. Going deceiver's way. God forgives your ways with the price that he paid. But if you choose to go your own way, then you will have to pay on this long and lonely road, like a ship going down with people We got one more.
One more.
All right, this is called No More Running with the Crime. Ready? Morning time, peaceful time, fills a person's heart and soul. This is what his main goal. Praying time, staying time, reading time. No more running with the crime. Clear conscience, pure spirit. You are the branch, and I am the vine. This is a state that is so divine. No more running with the crime. Lunchtime, feeding time, drink, sit, and dine. And I will keep you in line. No more running with the crime. Nighttime, cleansing time. Listen and learn from the east to the west. And I will give you my rest. 'Cause I'm the best, and you will be my guest. 'Cause I passed your test. No more running with the crime.
All right.
All right, we're done.
We're done.
This has been a Mega Life 21 production.